when it comes to housing, where it's a chicken or the egg thing. And again, the people that are in the middle of it, there is nobody actually looking out for their interests. So I'm just saying, I don't think socialism is the answer, but I'm starting to understand why so many people are going towards socialism. Because when we talk about
if it worked, we could do it, but it won't work.
But when we talk about housing, you give me a bunch of reasons why other people can't do it, and it becomes the people who have the thing don't want you to have the thing. Then when we talk about corporations, we talk about the people who have the thing. This is all the reasons why you shouldn't have the thing.
Right.
So now my house and my job, where I spend, let's say, 2/3 of my life, I can't have control over. So now you understand why I might be a little bit like, okay, fuck it, burn the whole thing down.
Yes. Now, is that like, does that strike you as the place to stay? So even though I can understand it.
No, but that's the thing. It's not even like a place to stay, because then that goes into the IQ argument, which is also lobby that says not everybody's going to make it. So there are going to be people that even want to be gung-ho and want to do it. They're just going to get screwed over. So just F them. It is what it is. We're just going to shrug our shoulders. Where I think that these are tangible things that this guy is listing, that if we did reduce stock buybacks, and you can't rebuy a stock, you can't increase your dividend to get more stock dollars invested, to keep more people in the asset train, to keep you away from the effects of inflation while your workers are getting caught by inflation. So instead of stock buybacks, why don't you give employee dividends? So you're still employee, your number goes up, your stock goes up, but now at least people are now getting bought into the system, the people that are helping you get that stock number. You see how it's the same thing, but it can be something that can help build somebody up the middle class again, as opposed to you need to figure it out. True. And I think that's the frustration that a lot of people are feeling in this moment.
I am so grateful for how well you can capture the emotion, but you're in Gary economics territory. This is all emotion and there's no reality.
No, that's a distraction. That's
not a distraction.
Because we could talk policy by policy.
Drew, go through them one at a time. None of these are going to work. If you try to tell a business, this is how you need to allocate that capital, you will fuck them up, and you will be like every other dumbass socialist country
I
understand how you should capital allocate.
Private equity has mental gymnastics to 3 different industries. When they blew up real estate, they went somewhere else, and now they're buying up businesses. When they're going to blow that up, they're going to go somewhere else, and they're going to start buying up TikTok and influencers.
Who's talking about?
I'm using a very specific
private equity.
I'm using a very specific input, because once they went through the housing bubble, that bubble
but that's different. Private equity is people that have made money and now they're trying to put money back into the system. So if you're saying, I don't like the way that you're putting money back in the system, and you think that there are regulations that could and should be done to protect against things like the 1870 type, like you're hollowing something out because people don't understand what's going on, that's entirely possible. And I've certainly talked to VCs, private equity guys, that see that there is a problem there, that where they're allowed to like put a ton of debt on these companies in a way that's wildly inappropriate, because they're doing it to, I don't understand it well enough, but there is some sort of weird problem there. But we're moving away from what we were actually talking about.
What I'm saying is that if you were to put these regulations on these businesses,
what regulations?
I could put specific regulations.
Tell me what the regulations
stock
are.
Buybacks, for specifically on stock buybacks.
So you're going to force them. If you can't do stock buybacks.
If we just add a regulation to there, they're going to find a way to allocate those resources in a way that's going to make that business ultimately better. We do the same thing every year.
Hold on. You're saying, no matter what burden we put on companies, they'll find a way to make it work.
They'll find a way to finesse it.
That's crazy.
We increase taxes, and there's a Google Ireland building.
Bro,
that's
tell that to
empty.
People in the Bronx. Like, you do create scenarios.
You're talking about rent control. I'm not talking about rent control. I'm talking about stock buybacks.
You're talking about putting an external, top-down control on how people use their capital. And I abstracted it out to see if that was the principle that you were really putting forward, which is, as a principle, that's we can put a burden on the companies, and no matter what burden we put on them, they'll find a way to make it work.
All I'm saying is there should be a moat around certain things if you want your country to actually thrive.
There should be a moat.
Yes.
Be specific.
There should be a moat around certain industries so your country can survive. Housing should not be...
You're saying they should be public owned?
No, I'm just saying that there should be certain restrictions around these industries so that way...
So regulations, because I don't know what you mean by moat.
Moat is regulations. You can't, there's certain waters you cannot cross. Private equity owning houses, you should not cross it. Stock markets owning, like mutual funds owning houses, that's something you should not cross. That's a very specific example. What I'm trying to articulate is that we just spent 20 minutes talking about housing. We got to the end of the housing. You were like, well, people who own houses are going to try to push and lobby so that way they don't get more housing, and that's going to keep the number up. Government is also going to do that because they're going to get lobbied up. It's going to be an uphill battle to change that. Cool, got that. That's hard. Now we're looking at companies. Okay, wages don't need to grow. You can do things with record profits. You can push up your price as high as it goes. Blame it on COVID, even though there weren't actually any supply chain issues. And yet we when we try to criticize that, you're saying, well, no, we can't mess with the company either. So housing market, although the little guy is getting screwed over, don't do anything with it. You're just going to have to get screwed. The companies that are now extracting the labor from people, giving them record profits, we can't do nothing with that. You're screwed there. But what you can do is invest your $10 and maybe you can get on this property ladder. Do you see what I'm saying? Like that's kind of
I see what you're saying. And this is one of those where we're going to have to take these issue by issue, because if you can't tell that you're approaching this from an emotional standpoint, then I don't know how to access your mind.
I feel like a woman right now because you keep calling me emotional.
Yes, because
you're saying, Drew, nothing you're saying is making sense. You're just emotional.
What I'm saying is there are physics to this. So let's take each of these things that you want to do, look at the physics of how this will actually play out versus like it ought to be this way. It doesn't matter how it ought to be. What matters is what is. People can make an argument that it ought to be that rent shouldn't be expensive. Okay, great. But you have two ways to approach that. You can do what Houston does and just say, we're going to let people build, and it is what it is. And sorry, homeowners, but your prices aren't going to go up.
Let's do that.
And great. Then let's do it. But what I'm saying is, we live in a system where you have to get things through politically. The reason that I say all these things is not to make people feel defeated. It's the exact opposite. I want people to understand how these things actually work so that they can go, oh, I see what we have to do. We have to be armed with receipts. We've got to be able to walk in and say, this is how it's being handled in Houston. This is exactly how they handled it in the Bronx. Look at the catastrophe. This is what happened in Austin, and prices doubled or tripled in like 6 months, 2 years, like a really short period of time. But this is how they got the properties back down. Again, deregulation, letting the free market go in and do its thing. And so everybody has to have a guiding light, a way by which they parse the world and say, this world is very complex. So how do we deal with these different things? And the answer, I think, that has been proven time and time again across countries, across time, over and over and over. The government is god-awful at allocating capital. They are absolutely atrocious when they try to get into people's business. They need to back off, do some regulation effectively. Don't let monopolies get into place. Make sure that you're not getting so much money in politics that nothing can get done, which obviously is happening. And I'm saying those are the things that you want to target. You want to find policies that have a track record of actually working inside of a real economy. Dude, when I look at China and I go, China had, just God knows how long of mass poverty. They starved their own people to death, all because they thought we can do a top-down economy. We know we're not going to let them do buybacks, this, that, or the other. And then they finally realized, oh shit, like the only way for us to go free or to get out of poverty is to embrace the free market. They had Americans come over and teach them essentially everything. And then they started doing it, and they went from 88% poverty to like 1% poverty in 40 years or something. It is the most miraculous thing that ever happened. When a communist country realizes, oh my God, what we have to do is lean into the free market, that's when you're like, bro, that is the thing that works. And so for sure, I'm not a no regulation guy, but you've really got to be careful with that. And if your beef is, we've hollowed out the middle class, ask yourself, what does it take to get a thriving middle class? And what it takes to get a thriving middle class is to make sure that homes, which is the only asset that the vast majority of people understand, access to that, and you have to stop inflating the money supply. You have to. Drew, there's physics. And if you inflate the money supply, it won't matter. Nothing else will matter.
These were policies that are already enacted. They got withdrawn. So just like we're mad that money is in politics and Elon Musk gave Donald Trump $250 million and that was gross, that was a policy that was allowed. So there was a world where the middle class kept up with inflation. There was a world where the middle class can own homes. Then there were these restrictions. Okay, everybody's doing good. Let's take off this restriction. Let's take off this regulation. Yes. And as we kind of walk down, these things compound over time. And it feels like we're confused, like, oh, what's happening? When we can literally go point by point, 1970s, go all the way down to the 2000s, how many regulations have changed and how those regulations have impacted the too big to fails. Well, the middle guy the little people haven't been protected. And even right now, we're withdrawing the Consumer Protection Bureau. Like, there's so many things that are supposed to help that we had to kind of avoid this problem that we restricted. Now we have this problem, and now we're saying, oh man, we just got to stop inflating money. It's like,
True.
There was other things that were taken away that sped up this problem, that exacerbated this problem, that if it was still there, it could have had a different outcome than what we actually led to. Nope. So no matter what would have happened, we would have been in the same exact spot.
No.
So then what's the point of a regulation anyway?
I literally just said no. I woke up one day itching so badly I wanted to cry. I wished that I could cry. I went to the skin doctor and they were like, we're going to have to give you some cream. This is crazy. You must be using a new detergent. You don't realize it, but something's getting on your skin. And I'm just like, that didn't sit well with me. And I was like, what would I advise somebody if they asked me, hey, Tom, I'm itching all over. What's wrong? I would say it's something you're eating. And so I said, okay, it's something I'm eating. And lo and behold, it was something I was eating. And as soon as I stopped eating basically artificial sweeteners in unimaginable quantities, it went away. And I was like, it's so interesting that people think that there's an exogenous thing that you do from the outside that will help you heal, when the reality is it's usually a thing you just need to stop doing. The thing that we have to stop doing is printing money. And I know that's frustrating because it seems so impossible to stop. But the reality is everything else is a topical ointment. And if we just put cream on it and we do all these things, it isn't going to solve the problem.
When the other 98 countries over the last 500 years have done the exact same thing, excuse me if I'm not optimistic that we're going to be there.
That they all embrace. Because, so...
If there's one country that turned the corner and was able to do it...
There is Argentina. But you need to look at this and ask yourself, okay, well, wait a second. If every country is doing this, and I look out at the world, and it's pretty awesome. Even now, there's a lot of strife, but it's still pretty awesome. So it's like, modern monetary theory, as much as I want to dunk on it and say that it's just total dog shit, the reality is everything's a trade-off. Modern monetary theory is a trade-off. And the trade-off that we make is that we smooth out the big bumps. 2008 in hard money would have been a 10-year recession, depression, would have been a nightmare. Now, the people that were stupid would have gotten washed out of the system, as they should have. But just like when China does really dumb stuff and Evergrande goes down and it causes ripples around the world, it's like there are things that affect a whole lot of other people. And so we have decided, for better or worse, that we want to run modern monetary theory. It will blow up roughly every 150 years, but for 150 years, it's dope. After that country blows up, a new country, in this case, almost certainly if China can get their shit together and do a hardback currency, but anyway, irrespective of who it ends up being, somebody else will rise. They'll get their 150 years. They'll do the same thing that we did, which the British did, which the Dutch did, which the Spanish did, so on and so forth. And that's the system that we're running. So we either say we're going to address the system and change over to a hard money system, or at least now with Bitcoin, there is a parallel hard money system that people can take advantage of. It's highly volatile, so do at your own risk. But like over time, it's theoretical if the governments don't try to seize it, that we could at least have a parallel thing. What bothers you and me is that the average person doesn't understand that, and they're never going to do that. What they understand is a home. And so I keep coming back to, while I would like to abolish the Fed, we're probably not going to, though they really seem like they're going to in Argentina. He's going to need another year, but like he's really making the moves. We'll see.
We'll see.
Even if we don't abolish the Fed, we understand what we have to do to get out from under the debt. We understand what we have to do. By getting out from under the debt, we can stop printing money, which means housing prices won't keep racing away from people. And so the average person then will be able to get back into it. Ideally, we would do a beautiful deleveraging. But unfortunately, just telling companies that they can't buy back their stock does not mean they're going to start paying higher wages. The economy just doesn't work like that. And if you tell people we're raising the minimum wage to $20, they'll hire more robots. And if you tell people we're going to tax the robots, fewer people will start companies. It's just that simple. And people are not being honest that the makers in the world will stop making. So Drew, you're an insanely hard worker. So trust me when I say I do not aim this at you. But there are so few people that would ever be willing to match me and the hours that I work. Even of the people that are willing to match me in the hours that I work, there are very few people that will take the risks that I've taken. I get it. It's super stressful when you have to make sure that everybody else gets paid before you. It's stressful. It is what it is. That matches some people and it doesn't match others. But if you strip away the rewards, people will stop doing that. I need only point at every other country. We beat them all combined in terms of the number of billion-dollar companies that we generate. And if people think that $1 billion has become like this negative word, it's innovation. They're innovating. They're building the future. It's hard and it's risky, but there's a certain type of person that wants to do it. But they stop doing it as you can see in every other country, when you strip the benefits.